Am I the asshole for making an uncomfortable joke when my friend told me her dinner table was full with family? Over the last 20 years, everyone in my close family has died. Both my parents are gone, my grandparents on both sides, all my dad's uncles, and anyone who is still alive are scattered out among the country. All I, 20 female, have left are my siblings and my brother-in-law. My friend, 23 female, comes from a different family. All the uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents have monthly parties, stay in touch, have big celebrations, you know, the works. All of them are still alive and active. I think she knows I'm sensitive to the topic, as I wish I had a big family, as she sometimes makes these comments like, you know, when you get married, your guest list will be so small compared to mine, but hey, at least it'll be cheap. At my mum's funeral, there were still a lot of open chairs, and she told me that if this was a family member of hers, all the seats would be full. She is aware of my many deceased family members. I took some pictures of me, my siblings, and my brother-in-law cooking for Thanksgiving and us playing games at the dinner table, and I posted them on social media. She texted me privately saying that we looked like we were having fun, followed by pictures of her huge family, and remarked the dinner table was full of family. Now, this is where I may be the asshole. I replied, "Oh, that's lovely. Have fun. Look, we'd have a full table too, but with the snow, it was too hard to dig everyone out of their graves." She was silent for a few hours, and then replied that joke was morbid and made her uncomfortable, and I really need to check my attitude. Am I the asshole? I think she's the asshole. I think she absolutely deserved that attitude. I think she deserved that morbid joke. You can't go around saying that, oh my god, at least your wedding's gonna be cheap because all your family's dead. Oh my god, your guest list is so small compared to mine. Look, all my family's here. Isn't this crazy? I feel like you just can't say that to someone like OP. It's not appropriate, and if you are going to say it, expect inappropriate actions in retaliation. I'm feeling a lot of feelings for OP, and I absolutely want to stand up for them, so I'm gonna say not the asshole here. Now in the comments, not the asshole. It's your family, so you get to make jokes about it. If it makes her uncomfortable, it's her problem. I would be uncomfortable with her saying how big her family is. Take care, OP, and I'm sorry for your loss. OP says thank you. And not to mention, she kinda had it coming after all her comments about your family. To me, it was a clever, and probably more polite, way to tell her to go F herself. Honestly, the fact that she felt the need to mention her big family during OP's mum's funeral made me cringe. What the hell is wrong with her? There were 3 comments removed by moderators after that one, so I think that has hit a nerve with a lot of people, that comment. Your friend sounds like an asshole playing the game of, I have more family than you, which is freaking weird and very insensitive. Not the asshole, your joke made her uncomfortable because you called her out on her bullcrap. OP says, I think she's deep down very insecure and sees friends more as competitors. She has even tried to compare our cat's weights so she could say that she is a better owner. OP, what benefit does her friendship bring to you? Like, this was my first question. Why be friends with someone who makes you feel that way? What's the point? I love this question because it puts things into perspective perfectly. I've ended a couple friendships because they didn't benefit me at all. If anything, they just brought stress and unwanted drama. It is a great question to ask. Not the asshole. As someone who has very little living family left, I may have to borrow your joke. Inadvertent or not, it is hilarious. Your friend is a tad bit out of touch with your feelings, and I have a feeling that it's not by accident. She is boasting in a passive manner, and I would definitely call her on it. Don't allow her to pin her inconsiderate behavior on you. If she was uncomfortable with the joke, then good. Now she knows what you feel like when she's cracking her big family jokes and claiming that it comes from a place of innocence. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my husband exactly why I can't dance every night when I get home from work? Background. I, 35, am married to my husband, 37, of 6 years, and working mother, nurse, of 3 kids. We went to my in-laws' house for Thanksgiving dinner, and every family member was able to make it. We were at the dinner table when my brother-in-law started talking about his girlfriend's newfound hobby, which is dancing, and she's been dancing for him every night after she gets back from her Zumba classes. The men in my family clearly got interested, and they kept talking about it in details, as me and other women were just rolling our eyes. My husband then all of a sudden just threw his fork down and looked at me and said, "Hey Jess, why can't you dance for me when you come home every night like brother-in-law's girlfriend does?" I was blown away by his question and really thought that he was joking, but no. I looked around and saw everyone staring at me, with my cousin-in-law sarcastically singing the Dance Monkey song. I flipped out and said, "I don't know. Maybe because when I get home I cook and then start my cleaning routine, and then feed the kids and then do the dishes, then get our 8-month-old to sleep and then clean the messy bathroom and bedroom, and then suddenly fall asleep the minute I get in bed from being exhausted from working on my feet all day long, and then coming back to a messy home and demanding kids and a husband. God, what a terrible wife I must be for not finding time to dance." He froze in his place, and then the entire table got quiet, and then my sister-in-law's jerk, cop husband who hates my husband's guts, started laughing, and then said, "Good God, guess chickens, really coming home to roost, huh?" My husband's face was so pale, he just told everyone after noticing how awkward things got that he needed a minute outside. He got up and walked out, and I followed him, and he flipped out at me, saying great job making Thanksgiving awkward and embarrassing him in front of his family like that. An argument ensued, and he said that he wanted to leave after I caused him to be in an awkward position in front of family. We got home, and he shut down completely. I stayed with the kids and couldn't even sleep, and after, I called my mother-in-law, who said good on me for calling him out as he stepped out of line, but she could be biased since she hates his guts too, and I just felt guilty when I think about what happened, thinking I mishandled the situation and ruined Thanksgiving for everyone. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole for not waiting to get home to answer his questions, instead of embarrassing him in front of the family and making dinner awkward. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Your husband's poor joke led to a response that he didn't like, and now he's butthurt. That's what I thought at first. I thought it was a joke, but he was actually serious, and was complaining about me not doing the same as his brother's girlfriend, who has no kids and no long-hour shifts. Oof. You were still not the asshole, and now I'm more concerned about who you were married to. The fact that multiple family members hate his guts is also a pretty big indicator that the husband's just an asshole. And edit, just because y'all keep missing this, OP's mother-in-law is her husband's stepmother. She still hates his guts, but is not the woman who birthed him. Yeah, that really struck me. I get that they are married and all, but wow, she had a lot of support at that table. Not the asshole. He embarrassed you first by putting you on the spot publicly regarding your lack of interest in keeping him entertained. Joke or not, it was completely inappropriate. You might have answered differently. Smile and say, "I wish I could, but I'm so tired from kids and work," which doesn't assign blame to him as a husband. But I understand your frustrated response. By the way, why does everyone seem to hate him? Yeah, I've noticed that too. If there's one person in a family who dislikes you, shame on them, but if there are multiple people who downright hate your guts, shame on you. Someone can be hated by many people in the family because they are the scapegoat too. Not the asshole. Refusing to be a doormat doesn't make you an asshole. Have you considered why so many family members hate your husband? OP says, "I don't know. His brother-in-law always had a beef with him, and his stepmom has a history with him." You should have a long hard think about these beefs and this history. One incident is a coincidence and a grudge. Two, and I'm guessing more, family members having beef and history with someone enough to hate their guts generally means that they are not the problem. Your husband, on the other hand. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for unpacking my girlfriend's towel?" I, 31 male, and my girlfriend, 25 female, have been dating for about 2 years. My girlfriend has beautiful hair that seems a lot more low maintenance than most women I know. She doesn't use 100 different hair products, nor does she blow dry it. It honestly doesn't take her long to style her hair or anything. However, she always insists on using this special towel to dry her hair. She insists that she can't use any regular towel for her hair. She gets mad if I use her hair towel as a regular towel too. She says that it should only be used for hair. She even bought an extra one of these towels that she keeps in her drawer at my place. She also takes the towel with her when she goes on vacation. I usually don't mind it, since the towel doesn't take up much space, and it's better than listening to a hairdryer all the time. But it's a bit weird because I don't know anyone else who has a towel just for their hair. For Thanksgiving, we traveled to see my family. Before the trip, I asked my girlfriend to leave her towel at home since we'll be staying at my parents' house. I don't want my family to think that she was weird or make fun of her. Since we planned to leave early in the morning, girlfriend spent the night at my place. I noticed that she packed the towel that she kept at my place in her suitcase. When she was asleep, I took the towel out, and she didn't notice the towel was gone until after we got to my parents' house. I thought it was okay, and my girlfriend didn't seem mad at all during the whole trip. However, when we got back to my place, my girlfriend got into her car and drove off without saying goodbye. She texted me later saying she was mad at me because of that stupid towel and she needs some space. I keep calling and texting her, but she won't respond. My friends think she's being overly dramatic, but my girlfriend isn't that type of person. Now I'm wondering if I messed up. Am I the asshole? And now in the comments, you're the asshole. And Douglas Adams can explain why better than I. A towel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy says, is about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. Partly, it has great practical value. You can wrap it around you for warmth as you bound across the cold moons of Jacqueline Beta. You can lie on it on the brilliant marble-sanded beaches of Santraginus V, inhaling the heady sea vapors. You can sleep under it beneath the stars which shine so redly on the desert world of Kakrafoon. Use it to sail a mini-raft down the slow, heavy river Moth, wet it for use in hand-to-hand combat, wrap it round your head to ward off noxious fumes, or just avoid the gaze of the ravenous bug-bladder beast of Troll. Such a mind-bogglingly stupid animal, it assumes that if you can't see it, it can't see you. You can wave your towel in emergencies as a distress signal, and of course dry yourself off with it if it still seems to be clean enough. You're the asshole. She packed that towel because she needed that towel. It's probably a microfiber towel. They tend to help dry hair quickly without blow drying, which can be damaging, especially if her hair is long or curly. It also helps reduce frizz, and if her hair is curly, to keep it in defined curls. Do some research on naturally curly hair. Many people with straighter hair also find these techniques work well. If you don't know why someone is doing something, just ask, or just let them do what they want. Don't mess up their routine just because you don't understand it. Or just let your girlfriend have a damn towel? Jeez Louise. Seriously, a towel. Keep your micromanaging hands to yourself. Do you honestly believe that your family would look down on her for a towel? This isn't just about a towel. OP did not listen to her. He didn't respect that she knows how to care for her own hair. He went behind her back to ensure she had no choice but to follow his uninformed idea he just pulled out of your ass. You're the asshole, OP. What did you think would happen? That afterwards she'd say, well gosh, you clearly know far more about my own hair than I do. Clearly my hair is beautiful and low maintenance out of sheer luck, and not because I know what I'm doing and the towel actually works. I was so silly to follow my established routine instead of immediately obeying your dipshit idea. Why would your family see her after a shower? Do you all shower together? Who cares if she has a hair towel? You're the asshole because you decided you knew better and took her property out of her suitcase. She was mature enough not to freak out during the trip. You should do a full-on say anything to apologize. Yeah, this guy just showed her that whenever he doesn't get his way, he will go behind her back to secure it. This isn't about a towel, it is about all future disagreements, minor or otherwise. That's why she drove away, to gather her thoughts. She will probably come to this exact conclusion. Any sane person would. Am I the asshole for outing my ex as gay to get his mother off my back? It's a long story, but my soon-to-be ex is gay and he hid that from me. I found out because I caught him cheating, and he as much as admitted that he knew he wasn't attracted to me that way, but he wanted kids and a normal life. I don't care that he is gay, but I will never forgive him for leading me on so that he could use me to have kids, so it's over, end of story. The problem is that his family are fundamentalist nutjobs, except for a few members, and his mother is the interfering mother-in-law from hell. Not being related to her anymore is another plus to leaving. His family does not believe in divorce. So, under the guise of picking up some paperwork and other items that I had found that were my ex's, she cornered me about how I'm being childish, and marriage is about commitment, forgiveness, and working through problems, etc. It became apparent that my ex didn't tell his family that he cheated. He told his mum that I was divorcing him because we weren't having sex often enough for me. I tried to be patient and explained that he had cheated, and that's why. I wasn't going to go into greater detail because I know how his parents are, and it's none of their business. Mother-in-law's advice, I kid you not, was that men are just that way, and if I wanted to have more sex and for him not to stray, that I should make myself more attractive to my husband and to be a better wife. I lost the plot completely. It had been a sad and hard day already, and that was the last straw. Here's where I might be the arsehole. I told her that the only thing that would make me more attractive to my ex would be a sex change operation, and that I hoped he and his boyfriend adopted her some grandchildren so she could finally shut the hell up about it. Not my finest moment, but she just hit the worst and rawest nerve that she could have, and I exploded. It's evidently turned into a huge family drama. He's probably going to be disowned, and my ex called, sobbing that I've ruined his life out of spite. I don't really know how to feel about it. I do feel bad for him that his parents are such awful people, and there were just no good outcomes for him. But I also feel like he made his own bed here too. Edit, a couple of things from the comments. 1. There is almost no chance of violence. His family are fundies, but not violent ones. They are more of the Mormon-style shunning type. One of his cousins came out and left the church, and after the initial protests, they all just stopped talking to him and basically treated him as if he were dead until he was ready to repent or whatever. They are passive-aggressive, repressed, and weird as all get out, but the chances of anyone physically hurting him are extremely low. He is not financially dependent on them and has a more than decent job, so he can support himself easily if they kick him out. 2. He has known that he was gay since before he met me, so this wasn't a new discovery or admission to himself. He has a boyfriend that he has been dating since 6 months before we were married. I went through his computer after catching them in the act and kicking him out, and found messenger logs and other evidence going back to before he started dating me. He literally set this up so he could have the nice Mormon family on the surface to keep his family happy. That's it. He never loved me at all. I was just the first girl to express a sustained interest. Now in the comments, probably unpopular opinion, but not the asshole. You got pushed into a corner and blamed for the demise of the relationship, which was ultimately because of his dishonesty. You didn't do it maliciously. Also, he wasted years of your life for selfish reasons, and I personally could never forgive that. Edit, Opie was being constantly harassed, blamed, and basically defamed because her ex blamed her for everything. It wasn't malicious to out him, and he should have taken more accountability for his role in all of this. And the fact that he plainly stated that he only married her to have a kid is beyond disturbing and automatically makes him the asshole, no questions asked. You do not dehumanize a person and treat them as a breeding animal for your own purposes because of your hidden sexuality. That is inexcusable. I think this is where I am. All he had to do was tell his family that it wasn't working, and they made their decision. Instead, he let them drag her to save himself. Not the asshole. It is a kind and greater good thing to try to not out the person, as it can be physically dangerous, but he also hasn't really earned any kindness from you. He's the asshole that A, he cheated, and then B, lied about the reason why to his parents, leading his mum to harassing you. And he's also the asshole that was planning on essentially tricking you into a lifelong commitment, while he likely would have been cheating the whole time had he not gotten caught now. So yeah, not the asshole. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for supporting my boyfriend when he told my son, no lock until you're 18? So I have been with my boyfriend for 4 years. I have a biological son who is 16 years old, as well as 2 stepkids who are 11 and 13. My son has been complaining about his younger step-siblings entering his room and taking his things constantly without asking. I tried discussing this with the boys, and my boyfriend punished the boys and told them to ask first before taking anything and to return it if taken. But my son said they haven't listened, and things went back to how they were. A few days ago, my son came downstairs, saying his older stepbrother broke his controller and put it back and told him that he returned it like his dad told him to, but the controller was broken. I again went to my boyfriend with the issue and had my son sit and talk directly to him. My son asked him if he could just get a lock for his room to resolve this issue, but my boyfriend didn't welcome the idea and told him no locks because locks bring troubles to his house. But my son tried to convince him and assured them that he won't use the lock when he's home, but only when he's at school or working. My boyfriend still said no, and then told him no lock until you were 18, period. No more discussion. The thing is, my son will still be living with us because he decided to go to a community college, and my boyfriend told him when he reaches 18, that is when he gets to get a lock and start paying rent, and no one will bother him. My son begged me to say something since he couldn't take it anymore after his controller was broken, but I agreed with my boyfriend that as the owner of the house, he gets final say and no lock means no luck. However, the boys will be facing stricter punishments to enforce the no touching other stuff rule, but my son was having none of it and started yelling at me and my boyfriend, saying that his stepbrothers will never respect his privacy and his stuff no matter how hard their punishment is, since they never learn and are stubborn and will always do what they want. He picked an argument with my boyfriend after my boyfriend said that he'll pay for the controller, and then my son called me awful for siding with him and refusing to see the blatant injustice in this house, and told us he's reconsidering staying with us after 18. He keeps saying that I'm not on his side because if I was, I would be encouraging him to set boundaries and protect his stuff that he buys with his own money. I reminded him of how much my boyfriend helped us, as we lost our apartment to debts and my boyfriend took us in 2 years ago when we had nowhere to go, and I let him know that he is doing his best to hold the boys accountable. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I could be the asshole for not doing more to ensure my son's privacy is respected, and at least should have assured him that I am on his side. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. Your son's privacy is being invaded, and you are choosing to pander to your boyfriend's ego rather than support your son. If your boyfriend won't agree to a lock, the alternative is that your son gets sole discretion to decide how to punish your boyfriend's brats when they invade his space or take his belongings without asking. No limits. You're so funny to think that OP would dare go against her boyfriend and try to tell him how to raise her son. Wait a second, I need to go ask OP's boyfriend if it was okay if I said that. I'm surprised OP doesn't realize that 1. Letting her boyfriend unilaterally dictate the rules of the house because it's his, and he's letting them live there because she can't afford her own place, is allowing herself to be subjected to a form of financial abuse. 2. Her boyfriend did her the housing favor, not her son. It's her job as a parent to provide for her son. While it would be good to not teach her son to be entitled, she shouldn't be teaching him to walk on eggshells around her boyfriend out of gratitude for the boyfriend providing the housing that she should have provided herself as her son's parent. She is being terrible to herself and her son. Also, did you notice that she said literally the moment her son turns 18, he's being required to pay rent to live in his own home? Because we all know 16-year-olds make enough money to self-sustain. Surely a part-time or 18-year-old going to college will be able to pay rent every month. Dude's literally robbing this kid of his first step up in real life over his greed and ego. Wouldn't be surprised to see him try to charge like $1,500 plus a month. You're the asshole. Of course you are. There's a very simple solution to protect your son's belongings, and you won't do it because... What exactly is the reason your husband won't allow him a lock? What suddenly changes when he's 18? I see you say that's when he starts paying rent. That's a whole other issue. Does that mean that he's only entitled to privacy and not having his belongings stolen and destroyed once he's paying for it? Why won't you help out your son? Why won't you protect him? Not even a husband. This guy is just a boyfriend. I can't imagine staying with someone who so blatantly disregarded my child. OP, if you won't do anything else to support your son, buy him a small safe for his more valuable belongings. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for sternly telling my wife I get to invite whoever I want, whenever I want, into my house? My wife is a stay-at-home mum while I work full-time. We have 2 kids that I help do 50% of their care, while she handles cooking and cleaning and the other 50% of childcare as well. I'm sociable by nature and am fast at making friends, whether at work or outside of it. The problem my wife has is that I invite friends and co-workers over every few days to my house for dinner or lunch. Restaurants aren't an option now due to budget. My wife has said that she has to cook for my guests, though I never tell her to cook this or cook that, nor ever complain about her choice of meal, because it depends. The guests eat whatever she feels like cooking, yet she complains that she has to cook for extra people, which takes effort and time, and also since I sit with the guests, then she has to serve them by bringing coffee and preparing the table, etc., since I told her I don't do these chores. But I thought that since this is her area of responsibilities, then where's the problem? I invited a few guests over for Thanksgiving. It was only 6 people. And when she found out, she lost it, saying that I should have consulted her first. I said there was no need because they'd just eat whatever she cooked, no problem, but she said she wasn't going to agree to cook large portions and for 6 extra people, aside from serving them and handling hosting, as that is too much for her. I told her she was making a big deal out of it and should just stop freaking out over a few extra plates and glasses and whatnot. She said she didn't agree, but then I eventually had the guests over, and after they left, she started yelling at me, saying that she was not mine and my guest's server, and that I should stop having them over, and that is when I told her very sternly that it's my house, and I get to invite whoever I want whenever I want, and I called her unreasonable to react like that, instead of being welcoming to the people who wanted to spend time with us, unlike her family, who cut us off completely. But she shouted that she was done with being on my beck and call and having to be forced to take care of my guests in terms of serving and cooking just because it's her part of the chores. And she told me that if I want to continue to have guests over, that I'll have to step up and cook for them myself, which I thought was quite rude and unfair of her. We went back and forth in this argument, and then she stopped talking to me and just started giving me the silent treatment, making me feel like I had committed some sin by having guests over. Info. I just wanted to explain that my wife's main issue isn't about the cooking itself, but having to cook extra for the guests, which is understandable, and I tried to compromise by suggesting we set time limits for when my guests visit to avoid having to include them in my dinners and whatnot, and also suggested that we limit the frequency of those visits, but she stated that she will still have an issue with it and gave me the options of either handling the hosting myself or just completely stop having them over or take them out to restaurants. But then restaurants consume money, and she was the one who advised against going to restaurants. Also, the reason I said it's my house, I meant that it's my house too, and not as if it's mine alone or hers alone. My wife has a huge part in it, and she definitely gets a say in what goes on and what doesn't, and we don't usually disagree except for this issue. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. You are not just having guests over. You are having people over every couple of nights? I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to host and cook for double or triple the amount of adults every 3 or 4 days either, especially since you are not helping. Those are your friends. Your wife doesn't run a restaurant, quit treating her like one. Seriously, and who does the budgeting to make sure you have enough money for this? Do you even? Or is it part of why she wants you to stop because you are running up a big debt on your credit cards or otherwise borrowing against money that could be put to better use? That's what I'm wondering. Restaurants aren't in the budget, but he can have a few guests over several times a week? How is eating at home cost effective here? Probably why she's backtracking about OP not going out to eat. If she's going to have the same amount of expenses, she might as well not have to have the strain of playing hostess most of the week on top. You're the asshole. And sexist to boot. Always consult with your significant other in regards to inviting your friends or your co-workers over so she could prepare or not. She has to take on extra work by cooking for them, even though you said she doesn't have to cook. It's common courtesy. If you want to invite them, you have to take on extra to work around. You said you invite them every few days? What the actual F? Every few days to make your wife work extra time on preparing the meals, grocery shopping, etc., or take them to the restaurant within your budget. Thanksgiving is a huge task to tackle. Inviting people without talking with your wife is like asking for a bat over your head. Bottom line is you're the asshole, sexist, misogynistic, and controlling. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit our daughter? So I bought my wife 2 tickets to visit her grandma in Italy next week. The other ticket was for our daughter, 4 female, since I assumed she would be taking her. She says she wants a break from kids on her vacation. I told her that was unfortunate, since there is no way that our daughter cannot go if she goes, because I have work and I don't want to take time off to babysit our daughter for an entire week. I suggested we have someone else watch her, but we don't know anyone that lives close by who would be willing to watch her. I love my daughter, but I don't want to take a week off to babysit her. Additional information, I bought the tickets for her birthday. My wife is a stay-at-home mother/homemaker. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I told my wife that I wasn't willing to babysit our daughter. I may be an asshole because this is what my wife wants, and it does seem unfair to send our daughter with her, even if she wants time away from kids. Now in the comments, you seem to not understand the meaning of a couple of things. Let me help you out. Babysitting is taking care of a child, usually temporarily, to whom you have no responsibility outside that babysitting gig. So if my wife and I go out for dinner, we might ask the young high school girl down the street to babysit our little one and pay her some money. A father looking after a child is not babysitting. That's called parenting, and it's not something special that you do or something that's out of the ordinary because it's normally your wife's job. It's something that you signed up to do 24/7, 365.25 days a year the moment your daughter was born. The fact that you consider being with and caring for your daughter babysitting is a huge red flag. Yes, you're the asshole. You obviously have no trouble with your wife going to Italy without you, so that is not a problem. And obviously you can take the week off work, you just don't want to be with your daughter. You're the asshole because that's your job, your most important job. So you basically purchased yourself a week off from everything. You sound like a crappy father. If you think taking a child on a trip is a getaway for her, then you are delusional. And a crappy husband. If she actually wanted to take the daughter, then that's a different story, but she specifically said that she needs a break. Now OP is seriously asking if he's the asshole for not wanting to allow her a break? JFC, his poor wife and child. Am I the asshole for accusing my daughter's mother of making me a deadbeat? So I, 44 male, am fairly well off. I'm high up in the company where I work, and money is no problem for my wife, 33 female, and our 2 kids. When I was 17, I wasn't the type of person that you'd want to be a father. My own father was a terrifying presence. I almost flunked high school. My high school girlfriend Sophia left me after I got held by the cops one night, and in a double whammy, she moved to Scotland with her dad for university in Edinburgh. Sophia was pregnant and never told me. She never kept in touch. I wasn't looking her up in Scotland. I feel like I had a right to know. Ironically, her leaving made me get my life together, and I did very well in university. Sometime when we were 18, she gave birth to my daughter, Inessa. Well, Inessa knew who I was, and so she decided to contact me, telling me I was her father. Sophia and Inessa had moved back to the country, different city, and I flew out to meet her. I saw a picture of her after she contacted me. She looks just like her mother, so no need for a DNA test. I avoided seeing her mum, and I spent all the time I could with her, getting to know her and learning all that I'd missed. Here's the kicker. I gave my kids the best life possible, but she struggled her entire life. After Sophia's dad died, they had a bad time in Scotland, and even briefly moved with her mum to Russia. They are doing good now because my Inessa's got a great job in the same field that I started out in. It made me mad. I could have provided for her. She could have gone to the fancy schools that my kids go to. She could have gotten new shoes, clothes, games every birthday and Christmas. She didn't even have her father to teach her how to drive. I didn't even pay child support. It makes me upset that I didn't do right by her. When I met her mum again, it was tense. I laid out everything I wrote in a calm manner, and my daughter made me leave as her mother was going to cry. I met Inessa the day after when I left, and we've talked every night since, but we haven't brought that up. My wife told me that I was an asshole to tell her mother that, and demanded I apologize, but I couldn't help but feeling like I wasn't wrong. However, a few days ago, my wife told me she's pregnant, and she talked to me about the situation in terms of what if I passed before my child was born, and since then, I felt like a major asshole because Sophia did a much better job with Inessa than other single parents that I knew like my own father. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I blamed my daughter's mother for me not being a presence in her life and why they struggled. My wife claimed that I was wrong, and now I feel terrible about what I said. And now in the comments, I might get downvotes, but you're the asshole. Think about her perspective. By your own admission, you said that you weren't the type of person someone would want to be a father. You were failing school and being held by cops. She was young, pregnant, and most likely scared of her future. It took her leaving to get you to decide to get your life on track. I know being told that you had a daughter was a shock, but would you really have provided for her being a teen dad? Apologize to them and just make the most of what you have. You now have the opportunity to spend time with your daughter. If you keep harping on the past, then you will hurt your daughter. Agree. He's in a better state now to raise kids, but he was not at the time he was a new father, or probably for many years afterwards. He needs to acknowledge that to her mother and apologize. This is so whack. He deserved to know he had a kid out there regardless of whether he was a perfect parent. This is tough, and while I empathize with your situation, I think you're the asshole. You are focusing on your rights and what happened in the past, instead of how to build a relationship with your child going forward. Fighting with her mother over what she should have done when she herself was a child is not going to make things better for Inessa or anyone. Not the asshole. She kept your child from you. What the hell is wrong with these comments? She intentionally kept your child from you. Years of their life you'll never get back that you never got to see. I'd be raging at that mum. She's cruel. Info. Did Sophia have a reason to believe that you were dangerous? OP replies, not me, but around our neighborhood my father was always kind of a boogeyman. He wasn't conventionally powerful or anything, but he was cruel, kept bad company, was abusive to me, and always made Sophia feel uncomfortable. I think me getting held by the police kind of said to her that I would be no better than he was. Why would she have any impetus to ever tell you if all signs indicated that you were going to be exactly like your father? She probably felt it was safer never to talk to you than deal with whatever version of you turning into your father that she imagined in her head coming at her for a shared custody and child visitation in another country. OP replies, at the very least, she could have found out if I did turn out like him. She didn't even try. Yeah, and you could have gotten your shit together, checked in on her, and apologized for being an asshole when you were a kid and whatever part you may have played in her leaving the country and cutting you off. But you didn't. I'm not sure why you deserve more consideration and effort than what you gave her. Sounds like you haven't changed as much as you think you have. And now, on to the update. I figured that I'd post an update since I've met with my daughter, Inessa, and her mother, Sophia, again. I went to the city that Inessa lives in for a business trip, and she agreed to meet me. I went to Sophia's home and took the time to talk to Sophia while Inessa was changing. I did what most of you and my wife recommended, and I apologized to Sophia. I told her I was hurt that I couldn't be there for her and Inessa, but that she did an incredible job, better than I would have been able to do before I got my life on track, and I admire how much stronger than me she is for doing it all, despite all she faced. This brought tears to her again, but thankfully, she hugged me and forgave me. She then apologized to me for not telling me when I was older, but told me it was that at first she was afraid of my father, and later on, she didn't want to disrupt my life. I told her it didn't matter, and all that matters is Inessa and her happiness. When I went to dinner with Inessa, I gave her an old photograph of my mother as a gift, and she thought it was some old-timey photo of herself at first because they look so similar. I told her about my own terrible father and why it hurt me so much that I didn't get to be there for her because I had this notion that it's a father's duty to always help his child, guide them, teach them, and love them, and they're a failure if they weren't. I told her I was sorry that I made her mother cry, but know now that she was a better mother and father to her than I could have been at that time. She also forgave me, and when she called me dad, she had just been saying father before that, which was still adorable because of her mix of a Russian and Scottish accent. For the first time as she hugged me, it was the best feeling in the world. Although I'd booked a hotel for the night, Inessa insisted I stay with her in Sofia. We wound up staying for hours watching old home movies of Inessa as a kid, which she converted into digital from tape somehow. And even though I couldn't be there for any of that, I do feel better about it. Before I left, I promised Inessa that I'd always be there for her, and if she ever needed anything, to just ask me, and I'd take a flight to see her that day. When I got home, my wife told me that I did the right thing in apologizing to the both of them, and that I should see her for Christmas, and that our kids would be fine without me for once. So, I thank you guys for recommending that I apologize. It feels like a weight has been lifted, and I can be there for Inessa without regrets. And now in the comments, a happy ending to a sad story. Do your other children want to meet their half-sister and connect with her? Does Inessa want to meet them? OP replies, Inessa has a fear of flying, particularly because she flew so much between Edinburgh and Moscow as a kid, and admitted that it was hard for her to move from Scotland to Vancouver because of it. So she's unfortunately not going to fly over Canada to Ontario anytime soon. Maybe sometime next year I'll bring my family out to Vancouver, since she has said she'd rather meet everyone in person than on the phone. I'll probably make a habit of visiting as often as I can though. You have a wonderful, caring, and comprehensive wife. Her level of empathy and understanding is way out of this forum's charts. OP says, I'm always worried that I'm not appreciating her efforts enough, and try my hardest to show her how much I love her. Last night, while I was waiting for this post to get approved, she was urging me to make an appointment with my lawyer to make sure Inessa gets a fair share in my will with our kids. She has never even met Inessa, but feels so much for her. Things like that make me feel incredibly lucky to have her, because she almost seems too good to be true. I'm so sorry the previous thread beat you over the head so badly into thinking that you were the asshole. This frickin' sub sometimes, man. Only one person is deserving of an apology, and it was you. You weren't an abuser, just a slightly troubled kid who had his child stolen from him. You keep on putting yourself down and saying you couldn't have done this or that. Who knows now? You were never given the chance. Heartbreaking. OP replies, I'd like to specify I don't think I was voted the asshole based on the circumstances, but how badly I handled my initial talk with my daughter's mother. I myself felt terrible about what I said to her after learning of my wife's pregnancy. Would I be lying if I said that it didn't irk me that I didn't get to raise Inessa? Yes, I would be, but she did apologize to me over that. All I can do is forgive and move on. It's not me who is important in this story anymore. And I'm totally glad she did. I don't think I saw it in the original post. I think you deserve to say your piece, and I'm sure she was upset as she could see the truth in it. It seems like you were both moving past it and doing what is best for your daughter, and that is the main thing. I know that trying to be a better parent than the ones you got is a major driving force for me, as it seems to be for you. All the best. And OP says, yeah, I guess people could tell from this post and the others, but my father was an abusive, negligent monster, and I've worked so hard to try and not be like him. So the idea that I had abandoned this daughter, I guess it made me feel like him. It hurt the most because, as I've said, she looks just like my mother, who meant more than anything to me as a kid. But she has given me a chance, and I think she understands that I still want to be a good father to her. Our next post is titled, Would I be the asshole if I told my mum that I don't want her boyfriend to come to my birthday? My aunt, my mum, and I all had tickets to see a live musical for my birthday in about a month. Something came up and my aunt can no longer go, so now we have an extra ticket. At first, I thought I would just invite one of my best friends, who happens to be a big fan of the show that we're going to see, so while it would be nice to have my aunt come, at least it would be fun to have my friend there. I told my mum that I wanted to invite her, and she told me, but my boyfriend might want to go. Now, I don't particularly like her boyfriend, but it's mainly just due to different opinions and perspective on things, and he's not a person that I feel I can truly relax and be myself around. I know I personally would have a much better time if I can have my friend come, plus she's a huge fan of the show, and my mum's boyfriend is indifferent to it. She basically told me, I'll let you know ASAP if he wants to come, then you can invite your friend. I don't know though. It is my birthday. Is it entitled of me to think that because it's my birthday, I should be allowed to have who I want there? Her and my aunt paid for the tickets, so I feel like because of that, I don't get a say since I didn't pay. Would I be the arsehole if I told her I don't want her boyfriend there? I would much rather have my friend. And now in the comments, not the arsehole. At the end of the day, it's your birthday, and it sounds like you'd have a much better time having your friend there rather than her boyfriend. I really hope she understands, and good luck to ya. Not the arsehole, so long as you frame it right. Don't make it personal, like, I don't like your boyfriend. Try something closer to, I would enjoy my birthday more spending it with you and friend, and if boyfriend came, I would feel like I was tagging along on your date. Not the arsehole. It's your birthday show, and by your they bought it, they control it logic, technically that would make it your aunt's call on who gets the ticket, since she paid for her own and half of yours. Either way, tell it to her straight that you don't want to go with him. Reasons are your own and between the lot of you. And now on to the update. So I told my mum that I would really much prefer to have my friend instead of her boyfriend join us for the show that we're going to see. She basically said, but he wants to go. And I told her I understood, but since it is my birthday and the tickets were a gift, I felt that it was fair for me to bring my friend instead. She then tried to justify it by saying, well, he was planning to take you out to dinner after, which of course is something I'd appreciate, but it's not like the show is even on my actual birthday. It's the weekend before. I asked her, why can't the three of us go to a nice dinner on the weekend of my actual birthday? And she said that they were going to take me out to dinner again then too, which just seems like she's just saying things now. She then tried to make up for it by telling me to check and see if more tickets are available so my friend and I can go another time and she will pay for it. 1. What? 2. Tickets were already scarce when we got them a month ago. 3. I know my mum isn't made of money, so I wasn't comfortable with taking it. And 4. What? She also suggested we just see if there is an available ticket for the same show that we already have the tickets for, and she can sit by herself if it's far, and her boyfriend, my friend, and I would be together, which just feels weird. So yeah, I just said fine, I'll go see it with the two of them, because apparently asking my friend to come instead just makes everything super complicated. And at this point, it's clear I'm not going to win, so there's no use in arguing and potentially ruining the experience even more. Thank you to everyone who responded to the original post. I apologize for the lame outcome. Our next post is titled, Am I the Arsehole for Wanting to Move In With My Dad? I am 15, I live with my mum, and I have posted about this before. I was very rude to my stepdad after my dad told me that he was retiring. I was really rude and I apologized a lot. My stepdad and I made up. My dad told me that he isn't going to move away and asked me if I want to move in with him. I really want to. I've never spent a lot of time with my dad, and I want to. My stepmom is pretty cool too. I talked to my mum about it and she was really upset. She said Dad had talked to her about it, but she didn't think that I would be willing to move. She said she wouldn't infight if I wanted to leave. She said I was not being a good sister by leaving my siblings. She said they will miss me, and I should think about how bad it would be for them to not have their sister living with them. I feel like a huge asshole because I want to leave, and I didn't even think about them when planning to move. It makes sense for me for a lot of reasons, but I don't want to hurt my siblings, and I feel like I will if I move. My mum is very upset with me. Now in the comments, not the asshole. What your mum is doing is manipulating you. She says she would be fine with you leaving, and then adds the things about your siblings to make you feel guilty. I'm going to guess you are the babysitter to your siblings and you don't get paid for it. Move in with your dad if that's what you want, and don't let her manipulate your decision. I was 10 when my brother moved across the country to go to college. He still managed to be a great sibling to me. My point is that proximity is not what makes somebody a good older sibling, and it's incredibly sketchy that your mum would try to emotionally manipulate you like that. Not the asshole. OP, after a big fight, I moved into my dad's, and I'm happy that I did. My relationship with my mum is better now. Granted, I was leaving an older brother, a niece, and my dog, while you leave siblings, but it's the same concept. You have a right to live with whoever you want, and it's not like you'll never see them again. Not the asshole, and frankly, if your mum refuses to let you leave, then she's the asshole here. The fights will stop, but maybe you need some time apart. And now, onto the update. Many people told me that my mum was manipulating me, and yeah, I didn't agree with them at all, but then my sister started to ask me when I was leaving and that she didn't want me to go. It was sad, but I think my mum put her up to it. I'm not sure, but I did talk to her, and she seems to get that I will be visiting a lot. My mum got mad at me a few times, and I don't know. My stepdad didn't seem to mind at all that I was going. Like, he did say that he'll be sad and all that, but yeah, I don't think he minds me leaving. I moved out about a week after I posted. Things are better here. Maybe it's selfish to say this, but I'm glad that I don't live with 2 tiny children anymore. Being a big sister is tiring. I can do stuff on my own here. Dad is stricter about timing and rules, but I don't mind because I do get to have fun and relax on my own when I am not studying. My free time would always be interrupted by my siblings and my parents would let me deal with them, but being the only child here is sweet. I think my dad also treats me with more respect. I don't know how to put it, but he lets me do my own things, and I don't have to keep everything kids appropriate because they could barge in at any time. My mum would get mad at me for watching TV shows in my room, which I couldn't watch with them because they would be in my room and they were always curious about watching things with me. And now in the comments, I'm so glad it's working well. I'm glad you get a chance to enjoy your childhood and youth and having the breathing space. Take care of yourself. Yeah, OP can enjoy their childhood without being a third parent to young children. Sounds like it was a good thing they got out of that house. I'm glad you were able to move out and see for yourself what it sounds like outside parties here on Reddit were able to see quite clearly. It sounds like your mom wanted to keep you there so she could keep parentifying you. Being a big sister is not supposed to be exhausting. It is not normal for you to not be able to consume age-appropriate media just because it's not toddler-appropriate. Good luck out there, OP, and I hope you continue to enjoy what it's like without having to deal with everything your mother puts you through. In this story, there is my brother, 51 male, his mistress, 47 female, and my niece, 1 year old. For some backstory, my brother had an affair on his wife. They have 5 kids. After quitting his job, they moved in with his in-laws. My brother's mistress got pregnant, and she decided to quit her job. She was evicted from her previous rental, leaving my niece homeless. My brother's wife decided to try and work things out, and I ended up having a lot of family pressure to allow my brother's mistress and niece to move into my rental, to try and create a stable environment for my niece. Eventually, I agreed to allow them to move in with a couple of conditions. 1. Pay $500 each month, most of it goes to the cost of the utilities. 2. No dogs. The mistress quickly agreed, since the rent is extremely cheap, and let us know she will be starting her new job soon. The first month I received half the rent. The last 5 months, nothing at all. It's become a burden for me to keep them here. I am working additional hours to cover the expenses. My brother's mistress never went to work. I have tried and tried to talk to them, trying to work things out. It's going nowhere. I gave his mistress a 30-day notice to move, and during that time, I found out she's pregnant with baby number 2. My brother's wife kicked him out, and he moved into my rental with his mistress. They didn't leave after the 30 days. They ignored my attempts to talk to them, so I served a 5-day notice, still no reply. So I went to court and filed for an eviction. Since they were served, my phone has not stopped. Just about every family member has called me upset. My dad told me to finish it. He feels like my brother needs to man up and take care of his kids, both from his wife and mistress. My dad told me to put my kids first. My mum, however, is livid. She told me that I would be responsible if my niece and the new baby will be taken away from CPS. She said my kids are old enough to understand mummy working extra hours in the name of supporting family. She feels like I should continue working overtime and paying for their expenses until the new baby arrives in 7 months. Am I the asshole for kicking my brother's pregnant mistress to the curb? Now in the comments, not the asshole. Tell your mummy she is right, and as her child, you totally understand that she's now going to work the extra hours to pay you their rent. Not the asshole, your mum is happy with putting strain on you, which might make you too ill to look after your kids. I'm with your dad. Not the asshole. It is one thing if paid late, but not paying for 5 months? Nope. You were completely justified in your decision. You gave them ample opportunity to rectify the situation, and anything that happens is their fault now. Entitlement is not pretty when the entitled one's world comes crashing down. So, wait, they both quit their jobs and live with you without paying you or talking to you? And his wife and 5 kids live with your parents. What the hell is happening? OP replies, his wife moved in with her parents. She became a stay-at-home mum when their daughter started having back-to-back seizures. The child needed constant care. However, with their parents' support, the wife is now working full-time at the front desk of a hotel. She is wanting to go to school in January to do respite care for sick children. They moved in with her parents when my brother decided he didn't want to work anymore. He has gone through jobs most of his life, but always found a different one. Until this all began with his mistress. Yuck. The only respectable adult in that is the wife. Kick your brother and his woman out. They are lazy assholes. What a mess he has made for all his kids. You tried and only had 2 rules. Pay rent and no dogs. She broke the first one in less than a month by not paying all of it in the first month, and then spent over 5 months with no rent or jobs. Both should have had a job already. Also, utilities must have skyrocketed with 3 extra people. Brother is 51. What is he doing having kids at that age anyway? And I assume no savings either. I would say she broke the other rule too, because the brother sounds like a dog. OP says, I didn't want to bring up the dogs that much since I felt like the main subject was lack of rent, but they ended up getting a puppy 2 months ago. I found out about it after a post I saw on Facebook. I asked them to remove it from the property since I'm allergic, which is why I said no dogs. His mistress told me it's her emotional support animal. Keep in mind, I have received no written notices or paperwork for the dog showing that, just her response for not getting rid of the dog. I'm sure if the dog peed, lost hair, or so on in the house, those rooms will have to be deep cleaned and the carpet and padding will have to be replaced, and aircon vents cleaned too. It's not a small allergy. I get shots on a weekly basis to help with it, but I still have to be careful. And now to an update. To answer a couple of questions, yes, she is pregnant. I was there at the ER when the doctor told her. I also found out she wasn't using any birth control. As of right now, the court date is Monday morning. I should find out there if the judge will allow additional time for them to stay. In most cases, it's 72 hours, unless I drop it or allow more time. Last, my husband and I have talked about taking the babies into our home. Just them. It's a major change for our kids. We feel like it's something we need more time to decide. Update 2, my mum showed up to my house tonight. It's quite the drive. She has been crying. I invited her in to have dinner with me and my kids after my kids left with my husband to go trick-or-treating. She tried again to allow my brother to stay. She said with their health, they couldn't allow them to stay in their home. I told her that I feel like I am enabling my brother to not take responsibility for all of his children. I told her I am tired of working non-stop for someone who is more than capable of working. She left sad. I will see my brother for the first time since he was served tomorrow at court. It'll be interesting for sure. I'm a little heartbroken, but it needs to happen. My hope is the judge doesn't extend the time that they have in my rental. I feel like it just makes things harder. And another update. Okay, so I went to go to court today. My brother and his mistress didn't show up. The judge did a good job, and she ruled in my favor. My brother has to be out by Saturday. If he is not, the constable can remove him and his mistress on Monday morning once the courts open up. Everything was going good until my husband asked the judge if we are responsible to notify my brother of the ruling since he was not there. The judge said we could pay for the constable to deliver a copy of the ruling today. I gave the constable all of the info, including when both my brother and mistress would be home. After I left the courts, I got a call from my parents, both on the line. I told my mum the constable will deliver the court's ruling to my brother to give them the maximum time to prepare to move. My mum was dead silent. My dad burst into laughter. I was then informed the reason my brother and his mistress didn't come to court was they had outstanding warrants that I knew nothing about, so there is a good chance they will be arrested today. I can't enter the rental until next Monday. I will update then if I am present when they go to remove my brother and his mistress. I was told today that if they are not gone, they will have 15 minutes to gather whatever they want before they are removed by the police. Wait, they had warrants? Yes, they do. I had no idea how they got in trouble. My mum knew and kept it from me. My dad, on the other hand, thinks this is deserved after all he has put his wife and kids through. I am not allowed to enter my rental until Monday. I don't know if my brother will be out of jail by then, and I feel kinda bad for feeling this way, but I hope I don't see him. I don't want any more drama. His wife asked if she could move into the rental since it's on the same street as my parents and her parents, and I told her to let me think about it. She is an amazing person. I just don't know if I want to rent to family anymore. It has been a complete nightmare. If you do rent to her, please make sure you have a solid renter's contract and perhaps even look into a month-to-month lease instead of an annual. That way, if you decide to give her notice, she has the month to find a new place without complaint because your lease is literally month-to-month at will. And OP gives us another update and says, here is the update for this week. The constable and we showed up to the property. He told them they had 15 minutes to grab whatever and leave. My brother went off. I sat in the car. My brother started threatening me. I have never seen him act so horrible. I just sat in the car, not replying. Then he just started smoking, not packing anything. His mistress was screaming from the house, saying, "You told me I would never have to move. You told me your sister wouldn't evict me." My brother slammed the door in the constable's face and locked it and refused to leave. At that time, additional police were called out. My brother's response was yelling that he was going to knock me out. He has a gun and will use it on me. Again, he has never treated me this way. So the police asked me to leave and go get lunch in hopes they could calm him down. Nope, it didn't work. They had to knock the front door in. They gave his mistress 35 minutes to pack things. She didn't. She just sat in their car mad. We changed the locks and cleaned the place up. And then on Tuesday, I got a call from the constable saying they needed an inhaler. I am not required to give them medicine. I am required to give them their identification. However, I drove 4 hours back. I loaded all medicines in a box. I put all the important papers and photos in another box, and I told the constable I was ready. They showed up quickly. They handed them the boxes, and they had another meltdown, calling me more names and threats because they wanted to go into the house. I was told that they had set up secret cameras and that they were watching me and know that I touched their stuff. The constable told them that it was illegal for them to secretly record on private property and they could go to jail for 2 to 10 years. And then my brother started walking towards the constable in an aggressive manner, so I called the police. My brother told them to arrest me. The police told him that I wasn't the one going to jail. His mistress took the boxes and left while yelling. I know I have to see them again, but I'm thinking about filing a restraining order against them. The police recommend I do that. Unexposed is titled, Am I the Asshole for Snapping at My Girlfriend When I Broke My Ribs? I had been hit by a motorcycle last weekend and I broke a few ribs. My girlfriend was there, and I snapped at her and told her to effing shut up while the EMS was on its way. She was talking about random stuff, and I was in so much pain. She's been all cold with me since then, and while I get that what I said could have made her feel bad, I don't feel apologetic since I was in so much pain. Am I the asshole? It hurts more knowing she's upset with me, but I just can't feel sorry about it given the circumstances. Now in the comments, something that I think often gets forgotten on this sub is that sometimes being an asshole is understandable in the moment, but it doesn't make you less of an asshole. In this case, telling your partner to effing shut up out of frustration is an asshole move. No one should ever talk to their partner like that. However, given the circumstances and the pain, it's understandable in the moment. When we are hurting, we are all kind of assholes. But once the pain subsides though, if you can't admit that talking to your partner that way was wrong and apologize for lashing out at her, as she didn't cause your pain, then it's not even a soft you're the asshole anymore. If you genuinely don't think it's wrong to ever say effing shut up out of frustration to your partner, then it's a much bigger and much less understandable you're the asshole. This. I don't think you were the asshole for saying that in a moment of excruciating pain, but what I don't get is why you can't say, sorry I said something terrible. In that moment, I thought I was going to black out from unbearable pain and I lashed out at you. I'm sorry. This apology costs you nothing, not even pride. Life is going to give you lots of chances to be the bigger person to make amends. I'm gonna go with you're the asshole here. I understand being in pain and not really wanting to talk, but is it possible she was just trying to keep your mind off the pain and distract you until the paramedics arrived? Mostly you're the asshole because you clearly hurt her feelings and have zero remorse for it. How hard is it to say, I'm sorry for snapping, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, I just didn't find the talking helpful in that moment, and I was in a lot of pain and I wasn't dealing with it very well. Thought the exact same thing about her just wanting to distract him. I mean, it's not exactly a common or awesome situation for her either, so she was probably not sure what to do. You're the asshole. And now, onto the update. So, just an update to my post. I had been thinking that I was right because my actions could have been justified by the pain I was feeling, but reading your responses, I came to realize that I wasn't thinking about it from her perspective. I was in the hospital for a few days, but I explained to her that I felt like she was being distant about what I did, and that I was sorry, as she was just trying to be helpful. She was understanding, and we are cool now. She even wakes up early to help me get to class as I can't wear my backpack. One other thing I wanted to clarify, someone mentioned that I was drunk driving, and this is not true. She and I were crossing a street while I was drunk, and a biker ran a red and hit me. I was not operating any vehicle. Now in the comments, receiving and actually processing criticism is incredibly hard, but the hallmark of a well-adjusted adult. Good for you. OP replies, bro, I'm 20. Bro, you're an adult. OP replies, I mean legally sure, but I was raised in a super strict family where I was never allowed to do anything, like go out or drive, until I was on my own in freshman year in college, so I think the term adult is subjective. So, what are you then? A kid? A teen? You are adult enough to go out, drink, go to uni, and presumably have sex, plus many other things, but you have issues with being called an adult. I find it a bit concerning that you seem to take no proper accountability for your own life. Our next post is titled, Am I the Arsehole for wanting a painting made by my late sister in my house, even though it triggers my husband, who is her widower? What in God's name is that title? I, 34 female, had one sibling, 25 female when she passed, who died in a car crash just 3 months after her wedding. It has now been 12 years since her passing. We were very close and more like best friends than sisters. My now husband, Adam, was a constant presence in my family's lives, even after her death, as he would visit my parents regularly, and they dote on him very much. 5 years ago, we started getting close, and we got married 2 years later. My sister used paint as a hobby, and had left behind 8 paintings. My parents took 2 for themselves, I took 3, and my parents gave away the rest to her close friends. They offered Adam to take any he wanted, but he refused. I really liked the 3 paintings and displayed them in my apartment proudly before getting together with Adam, as I felt closer to my sister. But once we became a thing, the paintings seemed to upset him, so I kept them in storage instead. I understand everyone grieves differently, and for Adam, anything associated with her triggers him, and he goes back to that awful day when he found out she was gone. We have no pictures of her at our house or any memento left by her. All this time, I've been understanding, but I feel like I have completely erased her from my life, and I brought up the subject of displaying 1 painting to commemorate her in our house the other day. Adam shut the idea down immediately and refused to even hear my side. I was hurt by this, as I have been considerate of him all these years, but he didn't even think to consider my feelings about the situation. It worsened when I suggested grief counseling together today, which made him even more upset. He wasn't yelling, but was clearly distraught by me continuing the subject. He said he already went through grief counseling, and my insistence is just opening old wounds. I was angry at the time and asked him why did he even consider marrying me when the thought of her makes him this upset and knowing how much she meant to me. He told me he can't handle me or this conversation anymore and went to his brother's to cool off, as he doesn't want to say anything he'll regret later. Now, all alone, I'm thinking that I might have taken this too far. Am I the asshole here? Now in the comments, everyone sucks here. You married your late sister's husband? That's just wrong. Did he marry you because you look like your sister? Because clearly he wasn't ready to be in another relationship if he hasn't healed from that one. If I died and my husband married my sister, I would haunt the crap out of both of them. OP says, my sister and I look nothing alike. She looked more like my aunt on my dad's side, and I have predominantly my mum's features. We connected 6 years after her death, and Adam had a few other relationships by that time, but we have always been a part of each other's lives, first as friends, and then it became something more. No assholes here. Both of you are grieving, but man, this situation is just messy to say the least. OP replies, we've definitely been through a lot, I agree, but we have a great relationship in most ways. He has always been my rock and the support that I needed, and we rarely fight. But this has always been a sore subject for him, and he becomes so closed off, even at the mention of her. That's why I suggested grief counseling, but he just won't listen to anything I say on the subject. You're the asshole simply because you're an idiot. Why on earth would you marry your late sister's husband? Look, I'm just saying if I died and my sister married my husband, no matter after how long, I would be turning over in my grave. Best believe that I'd haunt the ever-living crap out of you. It just feels so wrong, like second prize. Do you feel like a second prize, OP? No assholes here. I can understand why it triggers him. He was married to her, and he did lose her too, which is definitely something you need to be considerate of, as this seems like a really messy situation. That you married your sister's widower, and it sounds like he still needs to grieve for her. OP replied, he has spoken about it before, how he gets images of her lifeless body on the OR table at the mention of her. It was very traumatic for him, as he was the only one to see her in that state. My parents and I only saw her in the casket a few days later. So, grief may not be the right way of framing it then. While grief and trauma go hand in hand, they are separate. Not to offer a diagnosis, but as someone who has PTSD, that sounds like a trauma response/flashback situation. Grief counseling may have helped him process her not being here anymore, but may have been insufficient for the trauma of seeing a loved one in that state. I hope this makes sense and is not condescending. I'm going no assholes here. And now onto the update. I want to brush aside the fact that most people deemed me the asshole for marrying Adam. We are both adults, and no one should ever be shamed for loving someone, but I know I was asking for it, just knowing how red it is. That being said, I do feel I'm the asshole in this situation, and that is why I'm here. Adam came home that night, and that's why I wasn't able to reply to most of you later. Some of you had contacted me through chat and a PM to discuss it, but I really didn't have any energy to reply, so I'm sorry if I ignored you. Apparently I was only thinking of myself when I suggested bringing out the paintings from storage to Adam. When he cooled down and came back home, he explained his side of the story. It was really hard for him to come to terms with my sister's death, so he decided to start fresh by getting a new house, selling all of the old furniture, and starting over. The paintings were a part of their old furniture. This is something I forgot to mention because, as I said, I wasn't really considering his feelings. Now, many years later, when we both have begun our new life together, he didn't want a piece of his past reminding him of her daily. He said my words really hurt him, as we both have been through so much together, and me questioning all of it during our argument really messed him up. I can't go more into details of what we discussed because it wouldn't be fair to Adam, but long story short, I apologized profusely for bringing up his past trauma, and he also apologized for the way that he handled things. We both agreed that we are in dire need of counseling, so we are currently looking for one in our area. I also showed him the OP. He didn't care for most of the comments, but one intrigued him. Someone suggested buying something new that reminded me of my sister, like an animal she liked, and he said he could deal with that. My sister liked to incorporate moons and stars into her paintings, but never wore any jewelry with them, so I thought of buying a moon pendant or earrings and wearing them from time to time, and he agreed that would be best. The paintings, I'm afraid, will be in storage indefinitely until Adam feels comfortable with them being in our house. If he is never okay with it, I'm fine with that, but I'm glad we were able to come to a resolution and have started our process to heal. Thank you to everyone for making me see how wrong I was, and I was being a major asshole. Am I the asshole for distancing myself from my daughter after she took her mother's side? So I, 50 male, found out that my wife, 49 female, of 20 plus years, was having an affair. I was completely hurt over this, and have started divorce proceedings. Obviously, this has been hard on our 4 children, but I cannot spend the rest of my life with someone that I cannot trust. Before we got married, my wife's family had money and demanded I sign a prenup. I had no problem, but since then, the family money has been lost due to bad investments and lawsuits. My wife was a stay-at-home mum for the majority of our marriage, our youngest child is 19, and because of the prenup, she can't get alimony. In short, my wife will be screwed. The only thing we own together was our house, and while it's paid off, my wife won't be able to afford the upkeep or the HOA fees, so she will effectively be homeless. I have no intention of giving her any type of support for any reason. And since serving my wife divorce papers, I have refused direct contact as my lawyer has advised, but she's now playing dirty by getting the children involved. We have 2 boys who are 23 and 21, and 2 girls who are 25 and 19, and my wife has been pleading with them to get me to agree to halt the divorce proceedings in favor of counseling. After I told my children that I had no interest wasting any more of my life with that woman, they have all essentially backed off except for my oldest, Christy. She is very close to her mother and can't imagine life where her parents weren't married. Christy tells me that her mother realizes her mistake and will do whatever it takes to make things right. She says that I owed it to the family to work things out. I refused and told her that it wasn't her place to make those kinds of demands. Since then, the only time Christy talks to me is when she's sobbing and asking me not to destroy the family. I understand that this is hard for her, and I offered to pay for therapy so she can cope. But she said there wouldn't be anything to cope with if I wasn't trying to divorce her mother. Since Christy is being too emotional to act within reason and refused therapy, I have been resolved to limit contact until after the divorce. However, my other children are saying that Christy's behavior is getting worse. Am I the asshole for taking a step away from my daughter for a while? Updated for more info. Alright, I read a couple of responses and I just wanted to clarify some things. 1. Clearly my "she will effectively be homeless" comment was misinterpreted, so let me set the record straight. Because my wife and I own the house together, so long as we sell the house and split the proceedings, she will get something. 2. My wife didn't give up her career to raise my children. We could have hired a nanny, but she didn't want that, and she chose to be a stay-at-home mum for our children. Because of her family money, she was getting a monthly allowance from the estate. Plus, I paid for a housekeeper to make things easier on her. 3. Once my wife reached 30, she started getting a monthly allowance from the family estate, and the prenup addressed that, so that I couldn't claim half. In exchange, she couldn't get alimony. 4. I didn't want my children to get involved in the divorce. My wife decided to do that, and even brought up the reason why as a form of a preemptive strike. I only talk about the divorce when someone else brings it up, which Christy wants to do all the time. 5. I am not abandoning my daughter. I am just lowering contact with her until the divorce is finalized because she's not letting up on trying to pressure me into taking her mother back and refuses to go to therapy that I will pay for. And 6. Also, to the comments asking why my wife cheated, it's a little offensive. I don't know how that changes anything, or that I should care. However, the guy that she cheated on me with was younger. Look, he couldn't be any older than 30. So take that information and do what you will. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I'm a kid whose parents divorced. I was 4 or 5, so this may be a dumb question, but what does it matter that the family isn't together? I assume they all don't live at home and don't plan on it. Parents are adults, just like children turn into. If she is upset because mum is suffering, then she needs to let her mother move in and shut up. Not the asshole. I understand this is very upsetting for Christy, but how dare she ask you not to destroy the family? Excuse me, but why doesn't she ask her bloody mother that question? Her mother's selfish actions betrayed you, your marriage, and are the reason for the destruction of your family. Not you filing for divorce and refusing marriage counseling and therapy. Christy needs to know that she has absolutely no right to make those demands of you. She is an adult. Divorce is an unfortunate part of life. Some things are unforgivable for some people, and this is a deal breaker for you. In fact, asking/telling someone to just forgive or give someone another chance is emotional abuse. It completely invalidates and ignores how you feel. Quote, her mother realizes her mistake and will do whatever it takes to make things right. Not the asshole. Tell your daughter that the minute your wife can go back and unscrew the guy that she had an affair with, you will drop the divorce. Kids react unpredictably to divorce. The basic truth is that they don't have any say at all whether the divorce takes place or not. It's about a husband and a wife getting a divorce, nothing to do with the kids. And now on to the update. I just wanted to say that I was very grateful to all of your kind words and support in how to deal with my daughter. I decided to follow some of your advice and have a scheduled sit-down with her to explain that what goes on between her mother and I is not her fault, and that I simply can't ever go back to a woman who deceived me in such a big way. I told her that I try and be as forgiving and empathetic as possible, but I will not ever tolerate people who are liars with malicious and selfish intent, and try to cut them out of my personal life as much as possible. I was very calm when I said this, and I tried to be as loving as I could to my child, but it didn't work. Christy ended up breaking down, and again tried to convince me not to divorce her mother and just forgive her. I refused, and in the end went no contact with Christy for a little bit. I only spoke to her again 2 days before my other daughter's, Jane's, 20 female birthday through a text asking her not to bring up the divorce since this was going to be the first time my wife and I would be in each other's presence since I filed. I sent the same text to her mother and I didn't hear anything from either of them. On Jane's birthday, things were a little tense and awkward, but I thought it was going good. Until my wife decided to be passive-aggressive with a speech about how good it is to have the family together during important events. Everyone saw through her crap, and my son Jack called her out on it and said that she was selfish to bring it up on Jane's birthday. Christy started defending her mother, and Jane, understandably upset, revealed that the only reason Christy was on their mother's side for reconciliation was because she didn't want the fact that she not only knew about the affair, but helped her mother cover it up. There was a big fight that wasn't going to get resolved right then and there. I ended up leaving and was even more heartbroken all over again. Not only did my wife betray me, but my own daughter too? I knew she was closer to her mother than me, and I was okay with that, but this? I don't know what I did to make my eldest daughter so disloyal to me, but I am now resolved to go full no contact with her until after the divorce, and possibly for the rest of my life. Unexposed is titled, Would I be the asshole for potentially ruining my fiance's happiness? So, my fiance and I are getting married soon, and her sister is her bridesmaid. However, sister-in-law won't come to the wedding if her boyfriend Nick isn't invited or welcome. I don't know Nick very well, but what I heard and know about him, I'm not very keen on having him in our wedding. When we announced that we were getting married, and before we invited anyone, Nick invited himself. That rubbed me already the wrong way. His reason was that he hasn't been to a lot of weddings yet. For context, my wedding will be the first wedding that I'll attend, so his reason is not that strong in my opinion. He already tried to come unannounced to our home when my sister-in-law was staying there for an internship that she had, and he expected that to be fine with us. In hindsight, I shouldn't be that surprised that he invited himself. Furthermore, my in-laws don't want him to be left at home. Their home where he also lives, because they don't trust him to be left alone there. So when Nick comes to my home, I'll have to keep an eye out, which will probably cause more stress that day. For my fiancé, family is really important, and that is why I'm torn about this question. I know that it's my wedding too, but my fiancé will be heartbroken if her sister isn't there because Nick isn't invited. So, would I be the asshole if I didn't invite him, resulting in my sister-in-law not being there, and therefore ruining my fiancé's happiness? And edit, some people asked for a little bit more information on why I don't want him to be there, and what my fiancé thinks of him. My fiancé is on the same page as me, if we're talking about Nick. She also found it quite impolite that he just invited himself even before we sent out the invitations. We still haven't sent them. We did talk about not inviting him, however, her dislike of him is less than her love of her sister and wants him to be there if that means that her sister is there. I still haven't made a choice in this matter, and that's why I made this post. We're still thinking about having no +1s because of restrictions, so he'll be the exception in that case. Yes, he does live with my in-laws, however, he never asked and they never agreed. He just slept there one night and never left. He is also controlling, like my sister-in-law has to go where he's going and the other way around, and she cannot wear sexy cloth, her words. I think he doesn't trust her to go to a wedding alone. My biggest reason for him not to be there is that he took stuff from my in-laws when confronted. He didn't make a big deal out of it. And now in the comments, you're the asshole. It's perfectly reasonable that the boyfriend of the maid of honor assumed he would be invited to the wedding. Not inviting him, and thus preventing your fiancé from having her sister and maid of honor at the wedding, seems petty and punitive. You are risking destroying your fiancé's relationship with her sister for absolutely no good reason. Yeah, you'd be the asshole. At this level of the relationship, you should know how to compromise with your significant other, and you should be talking to her about it. If family is so important to her and it would ruin the day for her, then you should at least try finding a way of making this happen, and not just decide that you are not inviting this person because it could possibly be a stressful situation. If your in-laws don't trust Nick unsupervised in their house where they allow him to live, they need to evict him. This isn't your fight to have, but it is rude of your in-laws to push to have Nick invited to the wedding so they don't have to worry about him being unsupervised in the house while they are at the wedding. What has Nick done to warrant the distrust? It sounds like he's gauche and good at social faux pas, but why is he an asshole? If you want to bar Nick from your wedding, you probably need a bigger reason than, I don't want him there. There must be a reason why your in-laws don't want him in their home without supervision. Has Nick stolen from them? And as far as etiquette is concerned, it is rude to invite only one half of an established couple, especially when they live together. So unless you have a good reason beyond a gut twinge, you're the asshole. You're the asshole. He didn't invite himself. He's a long-term live-in partner. It was totally reasonable for him to be invited. Dealing with this sort of thing is part of being in a family. Before and after the wedding, you might be able to keep him out of your house. It will be a matter for discussion and perhaps compromise with your fiancé/wife. But for the wedding, given the sister-in-law's reason, you need to deal with it. Might change judgment with more specifics on why you don't want him in your house, but I doubt it though. I feel like if they were more specific than, he's a sketchy dude, you'd have shared that already. And now, onto the update. Although my post didn't receive that much attention, I wanted to make a proper update to close it after we got married and to reply to the people that took the time to comment on my post. After I came home that evening, I showed the post to my then fiancé, and we both had a laugh at how awful I was in the post. She told me that I need to work on relaying information better. That was a big mistake on my part, to not better describe the problem in my post. She also told me that she also doesn't want him at the wedding and that we were on the same page. However, she said that she wanted her sister to be there more than she didn't want Nick to be there. I said I accepted the judgment, as people pointed out that Nick would probably dig his own grave, and that it would cause more drama to not invite him, and I wanted my sister-in-law there more too. So we put him on the guest list, and once the invites were ready and sent out, we sent one to him too. We got confirmation from my sister-in-law that both of them were going to be there. We made plans with him in it, and proceeded as usual. But here's the good part. 2 days before the wedding, my in-laws arrived from France, but Nick wasn't there with them. They told us that he didn't want to get vaccinated, and he didn't want to get tested before they were going. You need to show a negative test or proof of vaccination before entering into the Netherlands. We told them 2 months in advance, and they were either vaccinated or tested, but Nick didn't want to. We looked at each other and asked ourselves if we should be pissed because we had everything planned, or happy that he wasn't there. In the end, we couldn't give a crap because we were too tired at that point. We had a lovely sunny day with the people we loved, including our sister-in-law. And now in the comments, Disney tier happy ending. Seriously, I'm so happy for OP. The only way this would be better is if your sister-in-law broke up with him. Couldn't have put it better myself. I'm so glad to have this update, not the asshole by any means. And thank you so much to each and every person in the comments section for helping having this wonderful conversation. I read Then Fiancé and kept anxiously reading to find out why you broke up, only to realize it's because she's now wife and not fiancé. Phew, congratulations. And I'm glad you got the best of both worlds. I hope your sister-in-law realizes that she deserves better. Sister-in-law is part of the problem though. She's the one who let Nick stay at the in-laws without even asking, and she also didn't think that it was a big deal to RSVP yes for Nick and then give no heads up that he wasn't going to go. She was willing to miss her sister's wedding over her boyfriend not going, even though her boyfriend doesn't even care enough to get a simple test to be able to go. So, not only did Nick not bother to get vaccinated or tested to be able to attend the wedding, but he didn't even bother to give a heads up that this would happen. He RSVP'd yes, then just doesn't show up with no warning. I'm starting to get a clearer picture of Nick and why you rightfully didn't want him at the wedding. And sister-in-law sucks too for foisting an uninvited roommate upon your in-laws and also not giving you a heads up. Our next post is titled, Would I be the asshole if I bought my friend a skirt for his birthday? Hey, so I, 17 female, have been friends with Jack, 17 male, for a few years now, and his birthday is in 2-ish weeks. I know I still have time, but I've been stuck on what to get him. I'm moving away soon, and well, there's a chance we may not see each other again, so I want to get him something memorable. His parents have money, so he has practically everything he wants and needs, but I'd feel horrible not getting him anything, or getting him something boring. I was looking up ideas on the internet, and I found that some people gift funny, memorable things instead of material things, and I thought I'd give that a go. So I decided to buy him a skirt. I'm also getting him some guitar stickers, but I wanted my gift to be memorable, and stickers are hardly memorable. You see, growing up, many people assumed or thought Jack was a girl. Even now, some people refer to him as she or her by accident, but it happens far less due to his height. Yes, I know girls can be tall, but I'm sure you all know what I mean. He also has a unisex name that is more often used for girls. He always laughs about it and doesn't really care. He told me he takes it as a compliment because people find him pretty. Anyways, so I bought the skirt, and it even fits Jack's usual style. He has this emo/80s look going for him, and I was really excited. However, when I told his sister, she got upset. She told me that it was a really bad idea. When I asked her why, she told me that Jack hates the whole "Jack is actually a girl" jokes, and even had a huge breakdown the other day because of it. I would totally believe her, except his sister has a huge tendency of lying about Jack. Like, she makes up random crap about him constantly, and although mostly harmless, it's insanely weird. Edit, he said himself not to believe anything she says about him. Just in case, I asked Jack if he was really okay with the feminine jokes, and he said he didn't care at all. He looked confused that I had even suggested that something was wrong. I even showed his older brother the gift, and he laughed, saying that it was a great idea. His other friends all gave me thumbs up too. Hell, I even asked his girlfriend, who I don't really know well, and she thought that it was funny. So when his sister called me asking if I was going ahead with the gift, I told her I was. She called me an asshole for doing it, even though I know how much it would hurt Jack. I told her that I didn't trust her BS. She said she wasn't lying, and then hung up. So would I be the asshole if I gave him the skirt? I'm sure he'll laugh at it, and that his sister is lying, but maybe I should just get him something else to be safe, in case there is a slight chance that she isn't lying. I've gotten really attached to the gift though, and the more I think about it, the more perfect the idea gets. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I may be the asshole because there is a slight chance that his sister may not be lying. Also, this whole thing probably isn't worth it, and I'm sure I could find something else, although it would take longer. Now in the comments, you would be the asshole. It's his birthday, and as a gift, you want to continue with the joke that he's heard his whole life. Yes, he probably can handle the joke, and it doesn't affect him negatively, but I highly doubt he likes the joke. Giving him the skirt instead of a gift is just you making fun of him on his birthday. Just because he can take the joke doesn't mean you should go along with it. And OP replies, I see your perspective and I will rethink the gift, just because there is a chance. I'm not saying the skirt is a no because I genuinely believe he'll like it. His own girlfriend, older brother and friends since kindergarten think so, and he has never once shown any signs of discomfort and is really confident about how he looks. He told me this himself. But thank you for the reply, and I will definitely look around for some other things. You would be the asshole. He could have conflicted feelings on it, but either way, why get him a gift that highlights something that's treating him like a joke? You are reducing your friendship into, ha ha ha, isn't it funny how some people misgender you? There's gotta be something else you can get him that is meaningful and isn't laughing at his expense. OP says, I get it. I just thought he'd appreciate a funny joke type of gift instead of the constant expensive things that he already has. He seems to be confident and even makes the jokes himself, but I totally get it. Like I said in other replies, I'll look into other things, but I'm still thinking it over. Thank you. Upside to giving the gift, he laughs and thinks that it's funny. Downside to giving the gift, he's hurt that even his close friends harp on a played out joke that actually makes him uncomfortable. Giving him the skirt definitely has a chance of making you the asshole. Not giving him the skirt doesn't. So why risk it? And now onto the update. So I've gotten a few DMs asking for an update, so I decided to quickly give you all one. After reading through all your comments, I decided to scrap the skirt. Instead, I handmade this huge poster composed of different horror movie film posters that he likes. He's a huge horror movie nerd, so I thought that it would be nice. The guitar stickers that I mentioned in my OG post were horror related too, so yeah. By the way, I gave him the gift earlier because I might move earlier than I thought, and I might miss his birthday. On a sadder note, his girlfriend broke up with him a few days ago. I'm not going to share why because it's too personal and not my place to share, but it was hard on him. So his friends, me included, had a little get-together, and that was great. He's still upset, understandably, but he's starting to make his stupid jokes again, so that's a good sign. And no, I do not have a crush on him, and he doesn't have one on me. The reason I wanted my gift to be memorable was because I do appreciate him as a friend. He's helped me through my parents' divorce and when I got dumped. I am not in the right mindset for a relationship right now, and neither is he. And about the girl jokes, he truly does not care. His brother mentioned the skirt to him yesterday, and he laughed. When I showed it to him, he said that it was sick, but he definitely liked the poster better, and honestly, so do I. I told him I didn't want to make him feel like crap over a frickin' skirt, and that his sister said something, and he gave me the usual, "my sister is a weirdo" talk. He also told me that stressing over people mistaking him for a girl wasn't worth it, and he would much rather just own it than cry about it, because that's just tiring. He is honestly a super cool guy, and I'm definitely gonna miss him. I'm moving so soon, and I know deep down that I'm not going to see many of the people I've become friends with here, but I'm definitely gonna treasure them all. Thanks for the comments on my OG post, I read and appreciated all of them. Now in the comments, so glad he liked the poster. Great idea. I guess the only way to truly find out about the skirt is to ask him one day. You know him better than anyone on Reddit, unless he's actually reading this. It's great to read how you have been supporting each other over the years. That's a really positive relationship you have there. Keep being a caring friend, and give us another update if you end up as a couple one day. Am I the asshole for telling my daughter she cannot marry a racist? For some background, my wife and I worked and lived in a somewhat larger city where my daughter was born, got a job opportunity in one of her employer's field offices, and it was too good to pass up. We moved to the boonies when my daughter, Amy, was a preteen, and we have been there ever since. The people are nice, but we were quickly labeled as city folk, and so we never really integrated very well. Amy came back this summer between her freshman and sophomore year. She got a summer job, which is where she met her fiancé, Dan. We have had him over to the house countless times since then, and he's polite, respectful, and he seems to truly love my daughter. He is a local, and his family have been locals for generations. We rarely meet up with his parents, but they also seemed nice when we did. They dated long distance all through her college years. This past summer, they got engaged. His parents decided to throw an engagement last weekend at their house. We had never been there, and I was excited to see the home where he grew up and meet his extended family. The party was fine. We did our best to fit in, but like I mentioned, we were from the city, and they poked a little bit of fun. His dad gave a speech, and while it wasn't overtly racist, he mentioned how he was happy his son found a nice white girl and looking forward to white grandbabies. As the night progressed, they started to share a bit of family history so that we would know the proud lineage our family would now be a part of. Without going into too much detail, they are descended from the members of a hate group. We decided to be polite and not say anything, but we didn't stay much longer. I let this stew for a few days until Amy returned home. She tells me that she was not aware of this family history, but it doesn't change her mind. I don't want her marrying into this family, and I told her so. She says Dan doesn't wholly believe what his parents do, but I'm not convinced. You can't be raised to believe you are of superior race and not have it become internalized to some degree. She assures me that they have a lifetime for her to point out all the ways his parents are wrong, but I'm worried that if they never leave his hometown, there will be too much pushback from his family. I told her that I'm going to be firm on this, that I don't want her marrying into that family. She called me an asshole and has been ignoring me ever since. I feel horrible, but this isn't what I had hoped for her. So is she right? Am I being an asshole? Now in the comments, you would be the asshole. Your heart is in the right place, and you can voice your opinions against it, but at the end of the day, it'll be her choice. I would advise talking to Dan himself, in private if possible though. I'm a black person myself, and you'd be surprised how often the least racist kids come from the worst parents. And edit, I just want to add that you'd be totally within your rights to explain that to her. You do not want any of those traditions passed on to any potential grandkids. I shudder to think of how those people react to a grandchild dating a person of color. How will daughter and son-in-law handle that? What if they can't have kids and adopt a POC? If the kids have a plan for that kind of stuff, maybe they'll be okay. These are all legitimate potential problems. It all comes down to how the daughter and Dan handle these situations. Ultimately, they will decide what values they want to embrace and pass on, and I'm sure the grandparents will make anything progressive a nightmare. But it would be unfair to blame Dan for his parents' failures as a human being, and you can't expect society to become more tolerant by denying people the chance to break away from the shitty opinions of the generation before them. OP says, "Thank you for your insight. I do plan on speaking with him this evening to see if we can clear things up. Your mention of potential grandchildren inheriting their ideology really fuels my fire to ensure that I go about handling this the right way. I know they don't exist yet, but I am determined to be in their lives so that I can offer them an alternate view on the world should they need it. Your daughter should be part of this conversation, or at the very least agree to you attempting to have it." OP says, "Good point. I will speak to her once she is finished with work." Suggestion for an opener: "I'm sorry I tried to dictate how you live your life. I am concerned, and I would like to talk about it with you if that's okay." Not the asshole. Ultimately, your daughter is an adult and can and will do whatever she wants, even if it means marrying a racist. But you are absolutely within your right to abhor racism and to make that stance clear. In fact, this is the kind of reaction to racism that you and everyone should have, especially when it still runs so deeply and rampantly like in Dan's family. You are right that racism has been ingrained into Dan, and from what your daughter said, he doesn't wholly believe what his parents do, and that she has a lifetime to convince Dan that racism is wrong. I think she knows that too. It will be very difficult, but you may have to come to terms with the fact that your daughter is accepting of this disgusting ideology, evidenced by the fact that she wants to marry into it, and adapt your relationship with her to that fact, whatever that looks like. At the same time, while you can't limit her, you certainly are not the asshole should you opt to distance yourself and have no part in paying for or attending the wedding. It comes down to how bothersome the racism is to you, and how you want to reflect that in your actions going forward, which may look like a tough decision between your relationship with your daughter and your commitment to your morals and principles. And now onto the update. Some asked that I update when I could. A lot has happened the past few weeks, so I thought I would share. Not long after I posted, Amy came to me to apologize. I was surprised because based on the response I was getting, I was preparing to apologize to her. She said she lashed out because she was trying to reconcile her relationship as she knew it with the new information about who he was. I asked her if she really had no idea, and she said that, looking back, there were warning signs, but nothing that would lead her to believe that he was overtly racist. I guess being long distance and liking him so much allowed her to remain mostly ignorant. She wanted to know what she should do. I told her that I was going to talk to Dan and try to get a beat on who he is, apart from his parents. She seemed to think that that was a good idea. A lot of people said that I was being unfair labeling him a racist before, but now that we have spoken, I can tell you for certain that he is a racist. A lot of you were trying to figure out what Amy meant by him not being wholly racist, and I think I can answer that now. He told me that he doesn't harbor any hatred for anyone, but he believes the white race will go extinct eventually, and he is proud of who he is and of his race and doesn't want that to happen. Which I guess also explains his father's comments about white grandbabies. I told him that his heritage is nothing to be proud of, and that his beliefs will have no place in our family or in my household. He said that Amy seemed to understand him, and that I might not have a choice of whether or not his beliefs will be a part of my family. I said that he was right. If Amy wants to move forward with the wedding, then there is nothing I can do to stop her. He sneered and told me that he supposed we had nothing more to discuss and that that was the end of it. I told Amy what me and him discussed, and she decided to call it all off. She broke up with him, and he has not taken too kindly to it. He has been back to the house a lot, so we decided to get her an apartment back in the city. Her work is going to start phasing back into the office anyway, so the timing works out. His parents called us and came to speak with us a few times. At first, they were just trying to figure out what was going on, but it quickly turned into them berating us. I got some Reddit flack for not standing up to them initially, so this time I made sure that they knew where I stood. Now in the comments, well, this is horrifying, but also a huge relief. Amy found out now. She sought out counsel from someone she trusted, and Dan showed his ass and made her decision really easy. Good for you for keeping the lines of communication open in your family so that Amy knew she could come to you for support and advice. OP, if they decide to become more confrontational, I suggest getting a Ring doorbell and camera just in case things escalate. If they are small-minded country folk, they may try to push you around through their connections, so you better be prepared for more harassment and find a good advocate, lawyer, that can help you. OP says, we are having cameras installed this week, so we are a bit ahead of you there. It hasn't been too bad so far. Just Dan crying on our front lawn, and his parents going on about how we are in the wrong. I'm hoping that this is as far as it goes, but I am prepared in case it gets worse. I hate to say it like this, but it sounds like the parents of Dan are more upset that they lost breeding stock to push their BS. Any other women Danny Boy has ever dated never tolerated their BS, and they are getting desperate to continue the line. That's the vibe I'm getting from them. Amy is really fair-haired, and I think they saw her as more white because she's blonde. For what it's worth, it sounds like you did the right thing in not calling him out at the first visit. That would have likely caused more tension between you and your daughter, making talking about the issue more difficult. This way you were able to help her see for herself so she could make her own decision. Glad you called them out on it after though. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my nurse if I wanted her opinion, I would have asked for it? So I, 26 female, am starting my uphill battle of trying to get my tubes tied. My PCP is on board with it, but let me know that I'd have to go through gynecology since the procedure is done by them. She put in my referral today, and one of the nurses called to set up my appointment. The nurse asked me if I was trying to set up an appointment to change out my IUD, and asked if I was having problems. I told her I was actually trying to set up an appointment to talk about getting my tubes tied. I could hear her overt disapproval over the phone. She started telling me that they don't like doing these procedures on people my age. I might meet a man and want to give him a baby, I don't want to end up old and with no one to take care of me, etc. She told me she believes that I'd be a wonderful mother, which is not true at all, and that I'm just scared of actually being pregnant and not of being a mother. I got so annoyed that I blurted out, I only need your help setting up an appointment. If I wanted your opinion on my body and future, I would ask for it. My male friend was in the room and told me I had no reason to be so rude to the nurse, and that she was just trying to help me think of this objectively. I honestly don't think I was an asshole, but I'm sure the nurse does, and my friend thinks that I was an asshole. So, am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. They need to put personal opinions aside and just do their job. Be ready for a battle though. It took me going through 8 different doctors before I finally found one to sterilize me. OP says, I purposely waited until I was 25 plus because most doctors won't even think about it until then. Hospital worker here, not a nurse but patient-facing, one of the first things we got told is not to pass judgment on people's choices. We are allowed to think whatever we want, but we can't tell them. This nurse is out of line for offering her opinion uninvited. Not the asshole. And it also sounds like your friend doesn't seem to see anything wrong with the asshole out-of-line nurse giving you unsolicited, unethical medical advice and telling you what she thinks you should do according to her values, not yours. OP replies to that, his defense is that he would be really upset to find out a woman he really likes has her tubes tied, even though he doesn't want kids. Like, what if we both change our minds? Another one he said that really shocked me was, you'll never have the chance to have an accident. That could change your whole view on being a parent, and you might want to keep the pregnancy. I told him that's exactly the effing point. I don't want an accident. Then he doesn't have to be with a woman that has her tubes tied. That is so gross. What if a man objects? Oh no, call the church. A man told me he doesn't approve of my autonomy over my body. Whatever shall I do? OP says, he's frickin' crazy. This whole thing had nothing to do with him, but it's ruined our friendship in 12 hours. Not the asshole. She was being incredibly unprofessional and inappropriate. You were just pointing that out so she would stop trying to tell you how to live your life and just help you set up your appointment. And now back to the post. Edit. I woke up and RIP my inbox. Thank you for all the suggestions and support. I have a lot of reading and research to do. I didn't know I had so many options in the way of sterilization. I do plan on reporting this nurse. Someone not as strong-willed as me might get dissuaded or bullied out of it. I don't like that crap. Another thing to mention, the nurses set appointments and schedule everything else. The gyne, technically it's a woman's health clinic office, is specifically for patients with PTSD, cancer, high risk, severe womanly issues, and gynecology trauma. The idea is only to speak to medical professionals so you have consistent access to people who supposedly know what they are talking about. The nurses go on monthly rotation, so some are on the floor and others will be at reception. My ex-friend blew up our friendship in a nuclear way. Basically, he was a closet neckbeard. My appointment is set up for later this month, and if anything of interest happens, I'll update since some people asked. And now onto the update for, am I the asshole for telling my nurse if I wanted her opinion I would have asked for it? So, to no one's surprise, the answer was no. My gynecologist, Dr. O, spoke with me for just under an hour, and her main talking points were, 1. She doesn't like to do the procedure younger than 30. Towards the end of us talking, she told me that she's willing to do it when I turn 28. 2. She had a patient last month asking for her sterilization to be reversed. The woman was a divorcee at the time of sterilization and said she never wanted kids. 3 years later, she meets the love of her life and wants a kid by him. Tragic story, but what does that have to do with me? Of course, the good old, what if you meet a man and want to have kids with him? Or, what if you and your partner decide to have kids? And 3, her last reason was that it's a serious procedure and she doesn't like to hand them out like candy. I told her that I've been asking about this since I was 20, and was told, albeit in a completely different state, that 25 was the golden age for consideration. Dr. Rowe was pretty shocked to hear that I've wanted this for so long, and that's why she agreed to do it at 28 instead of 30. She kept basically saying that I might want kids, so I realized a very important thing. My terminology for this endeavor needs to change. I told Dr. Rowe to forget the kids part of this, completely take children out of the picture. I do not want to get, or be able to get, pregnant. I spent a solid 5 to 8 minutes about why I don't want that, and how the concept gives me anxiety. I even started to panic in the office talking about realistically getting pregnant. It still fell on deaf ears. So, I opted to get a second opinion with a male gynecologist. Enter Dr. B. Dr. B and I had a very long and interesting appointment. He was extremely helpful and encouraged me to schedule another appointment with Dr. Rowe. He gave me talking points and tons of helpful advice on getting this to happen. He is optimistic that if I am annoying enough and follow his advice and talking points, Dr. O will do the procedure. If I don't have surgery in the works by January, he told me he will personally help me find a provider outside the VA. Dr. B said he would be more than willing to do the procedure for me, but because he no longer has access to the surgery area, that he can't help. He is on his way out so he can retire, so he's not doing surgeries anymore, and doesn't do anything that can't be done in the clinic. This is everything I have to report. I'm going to continue to push to get this done. Thank you for those that came back to check up on how this went. Now in the comments, my wife at 35 finally got her tubes removed after arguing with her OB since the age of 16, and ultimately firing her OB and getting a good doctor who had a thorough discussion with her about all the risks and options, and then scheduled the procedure. Well, at 35, most OBs won't put up a fight. They usually don't want to do this particular surgery on someone below 30. Partially, that probably depends on where you live. Most of the women I know here in the Midwest were pressured by their OB to wait until at least 40. My wife's former OB simply refused to even consider it this year, which is why my wife fired her and found a different one. Midwest here, my aunt was 45, had 2 teenagers, and in constant pain because her parts decided to sprout tumors left and right. There was a chance that it was cancer, and the doctor was still trying to convince her that she could want more children. Fortunately, my aunt is a stubborn spitfire and got her procedure. No cancer, no more pain. I love when people say to me, "Oh, but what if you want more kids in the future?" My reply is, "Hi, I'm Miss Adoptee. How are you?" Why does no one ever consider adoption? Do people really want their legacy to come from their reproductive organs that badly? If I ever decide to have kids, which is extremely unlikely, I would 100% adopt. This adoptee approves of your plan. And OP says, even when I was convinced I wanted a kid, it was always through adoption. There are millions of unwanted kids that need a loving home. I hope you had a happily ever after adoption. And they replied that, it's been a mixed bag as a kid, but my present and my future currently are pointing towards one. I'm keeping it that way. Thank you. And that's where I'm going to end the episode for today, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed it. As always, smack that like button if you haven't already. Go on, do it. I bet you won't. With that said, I hope you guys have a bloody good time. I will see you in the next episode, and I hope your day is lovely. Bye.